Teddi Mellencamp wonders whether Dorits Kemsley was ever really there for Kyle Richards amid Feud. Despite no longer being a cast member on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Teddi Mellencamp's name keeps being brought up on screen. In a recent episode, Kyle Richards mentioned the former diamond holder during a fiery argument with Dorits Kemsley. Now that her name has been mentioned again, Teddi is speaking out about the long-running Bravo series and the current feud between Kyle and Dorits. In a recent episode of her Two Teeth in a Pod podcast, Teddi was quizzed about whether she believes Kyle's sentiments about her and Dorits not being as close as the show would like viewers to believe is true. "I see Kyle multiple times a week," the 43-year-old shared, adding that she's never once heard Kyle talk about doing anything with Dorits unless she's filming. This is quite the bombshell because it tracks with what Kyle said about their relationship during the season 13 reunion. "We don't know how much of what we see in the women's lives on screen represents who they are when the cameras are not rolling, so it's possible that Dorits and Kyle were only friends when the show was filming." Teddi thinks Dorits and Kyle are going in different directions in life. Teddi also implied that they were in very different stages of their lives, which could present a hurdle. "Dorits just likes ripping down cigs, and Kyle's all into working out," Teddi said with a smile before wondering if Dorits was ever really there for Kyle. Kyle has consistently been in the headlines over the last year in the wake of her separation from Mauricio Umansky and questions about whether she's in a relationship with country music singer Morgan Wade. Teddi is conflicted about how close Kyle and Dorits were because she doesn't feel that Dorits was there for Kyle in her time of need. "You would think of all the times last year was when Dorits would be there for her. And instead, she shows the text messages," she reasoned. The text messages Teddi is referring to came up at last season's reunion when Dorits shared messages that Kyle sent her. Teddi questions Dorits' motives. At the time, Dorits accused Kyle of doing damage control to keep her silent about their friendship woes, which led to questions about whether their friendship was genuine. Of course, they've both been on the outs during season 14, with Dorits telling her former friend that Grace time is over in a recent episode. Their feud is poised to span the rest of the season, so there's no telling where things will end up. We know that Teddi will fiercely defend Kyle until the end, which makes sense, considering they live together now. Teddi Mellencamp sat in the dim glow of her living room, scrolling through headlines that all screamed the same thing: Kyle Richards and Dorits Kemsley at odds. The news hit differently for her. She had been in the trenches with both of them, navigating the complicated sisterhood that was the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. But this was a fracture she wasn't sure could be mended. Her phone buzzed, and she saw a text from a mutual friend. "Can you believe what Dorits said in that interview?" Teddi sighed, rubbing her temple before clicking the link attached. The words jumped off the screen at her. Dorits Kemsley, in her usual poised and polished manner, had downplayed the severity of her falling out with Kyle. But to Teddi, it reeked of something more insidious: detachment. Teddi thought back to the beginning, to the days when Kyle and Dorits' friendship seemed unshakable. They had bonded over extravagant vacations, their mutual love for designer labels, and the relentless chaos that came with being housewives. But there had always been something Teddi couldn't quite put her finger on. And now, in the wake of Kyle's very public struggles, Teddi couldn't help but wonder, was Dorits ever really there for Kyle? Kyle had been through a whirlwind year: whispers of marital issues, speculation about her relationship with country singer Morgan Wade, and the emotional toll of her long-standing family drama. Through it all, Teddi had been there, a quiet but constant support. But Dorits? Teddi replayed past moments in her mind. Sure, Dorits had been present, but had she ever truly shown up for Kyle in the way that mattered? A recent memory surfaced: Kyle, teary-eyed, confiding in them during a cast trip. She had opened up about feeling lost, like the very foundation of her life was shifting beneath her feet. Teddi had reached for Kyle's hand, offering reassurance. Dorits, meanwhile, had offered a well-practiced look of concern, her perfectly arched brows furrowing just enough to convey sympathy. But then she had pivoted, steering the conversation toward her own struggles. It had been subtle, but Teddi had noticed, and she wondered if Kyle had too. Teddi set her phone down and leaned back into her couch, exhaling sharply. She had defended Dorrit for years. Even when their friendship had wavered, she had given her the benefit of the doubt. But now, she was questioning everything. She thought about how Dorrit had framed things in interviews, brushing off Kyle's pain with a dismissive "we all go through things." Teddi knew that wasn't the same as being there. There was a difference between appearing in someone's life and actually standing by their side. And it was becoming clearer by the day that Dorrit had only done the former. Maybe it was time for Kyle to reevaluate who she considered a true friend. Maybe it was time for all of them to see Dorrit for who she really was. Someone who, despite all the glitz and glam, was only there for the picture-perfect moments, not the messy, real ones. Teddi picked up her phone again, her fingers hovering over Kyle's contact. She had a feeling Kyle already knew the truth, but maybe, just maybe, she needed to hear it from a real friend. Teddi Mellencamp is weighing in on the ongoing tension between Kyle Richards and Dorrit Kemsley, questioning whether Dorrit was ever truly there for Kyle when it mattered most. In a recent episode of Two Teas in a Pod, the podcast she co-hosts with Tamra Judge, Teddi reflected on the fallout between Kyle and Dorrit, a friendship that once seemed unshakable. Teddi, who has been one of Kyle's closest allies, didn't hold back in her assessment. "I just don't know if Dorrit was ever really there for Kyle the way Kyle was there for her," Teddi remarked. "Kyle has gone through so much this past year. Her separation, the rumors, the pressures of the show, and I don't think Dorrit showed up for her in the way a best friend should." Kyle and Dorrit's friendship took a hit during season 13 of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, with tensions boiling over as Kyle navigated personal struggles, including her separation from Mauricio Umansky. Despite their previous Fox Force 5 alliance, Kyle accused Dorrit of not being there for her, while Dorrit felt Kyle had been distant and dismissive. Teddi's comments add another layer to the drama, as she and Dorrit have had their share of conflicts in the past. Fans are now wondering whether Kyle and Dorrit's friendship can survive the strain, or if this is the end of their once close bond. Do you think Dorrit was truly a supportive friend to Kyle, or was their friendship more surface level all along?